We have a very special guest alert because on today's show, the boys from Chargers Unleashed are back to talk about dream draft scenarios, including if Ashton Jeanty could actually end up with the Chargers.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, and me and my co-host, David Droegemeier, have been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And today is part 2 of our Chargers Unleashed crossover, and we're talking about the draft, and specifically what the dream scenario is for the Chargers at 22, or maybe moving up a little bit. Is it an Ashton Jeanty? Is it a Colston Loveland? And also, is it time for the Chargers to spend a little bit more on a running back in the draft instead of waiting till day 3 before getting into one of our favorite segments of crossover, buy or sell with the boys? But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Here they are, Chargers Unleashed. Let's talk about the draft. We talked about free agency with you guys, and some guys that will be here, some guys that won't be here, but the draft's coming up too, which is super exciting because of how good Joe Ortiz was drafting last year. It gets you, I think, to another level of excitement that maybe you had with Tom Telesco, where I think for the most part, you'd give every first round pick a chance, right? You feel pretty good about that. You knew that every third round pick was probably going to get shot up into the moon to, somewhere just like it, and never to be seen again. Picking the 178th consensus player in the draft. But this year it feels different, and the Chargers go into the draft, I think, with a lot of positivity. And of course, if the comp picks hold up, they're going to have 10 draft selections. Joe Ortiz already getting that factory working. Joe Ortiz, such a good GM that he got someone to pay Kenneth Murray 2 years, $17 million, just because he asked the Titans
shout
to
out
do
to
that
his agent
as a solid for him, and then got them 3 comp picks. But last year, the Chargers aced their first-round pick with Joe Alt, especially when you come around and get Ladd McConkey. You know the pair of them. You needed a tackle and a wide receiver. I don't think there was no better combination of a tackle and a wide receiver picked in that draft. You got a guy that has already kind of gotten himself near the top 10 of the tackle position, and somebody who's already near the top 10 of the wide receiver position, and he did it with his first 2 picks as an NFL general manager. But even though we're early in draft season, Jake, I'll start with you. If you could have a dream pick at 22, right? Obviously, I don't think you're going to...
Let's keep it realistic.
You're not going to get Travis Hunter. We'll take Travis Hunter off the table. We'll take Abdul Carter off the table. But if you could have a dream pick in the first round, hey, we can take some guys that maybe you would need a little softening. Maybe you have to move up a couple picks for. It doesn't necessarily have to be 22. But who would your dream scenario be right now, early in draft season for the Chargers in the first round?
Yeah, I know it's early. We have the combine next week, free agency a few weeks after that. Yeah, everything's going to change as far as priority for the Chargers. But if it was me, you'd probably need a couple snowballs to get through hell in order for this to happen the way that things are lining up right now and the teams that that are ahead of them. But if it was me, Colston Loveland would just be,
plug and play
banana cream sandwich for me. That would be the dream scenario for me. Just obviously, Jim Harbaugh getting back another one of his guys and having a tight end that can move and find space the way that Colston Loveland can. He's got that size, speed, and athleticism combo that you want out of a tight end. And this tight end class is so ridiculously good. Even compared to what we thought of a couple of years ago with the tight end class, this one looks to be even better, a little bit deeper, a lot of good production as it relates to guys who are move tight ends, which is what the Chargers need in this circumstance. But once upon a time, Jim Harbaugh called Colston Loveland the next Travis Kelce. He just knows how to get open in so many different scenarios. He's able to find that patch of green, get open, and make plays happen. And for Justin Herbert to have a weapon like that he has not had essentially for the better part of 5 years, that's something else that you need outside of the Ladd McConkeys or your X receiver on the outside. You need another weapon in the tight end aspect that we just haven't seen with this Chargers team. And Colston Loveland, to me, that would be a dream scenario. If somehow, some way he was able to fall to 22, the Chargers should be rushing that card up to the podium.
Yeah, I love the pick. I think he's also a better blocker than he's given credit for. Obviously, it's never going to be not the part of his game that he's going to be known best for. And the Chargers, obviously, you'd love a well-rounded guy that can do everything. A George Kittle, for example, sure. But you do have Will Dissly, and that does factor into the conversation because you have him under contract over the next 2 years. Dan, what is your dream scenario? What do you dream of when you go to sleep at night?
Oh man. Oh,
This is the after dark version of
Right.
Locked On Chargers.
I
Look,
think of the Hangover.
This might anger Jake a little bit, but there are
Oh.
two guys. There are two guys that if they start falling, I don't think the Chargers can get them if they don't trade up. But
Sure, it might be a little bit of wiggle. Yeah,
like 17, 18, something
Sure.
like that.
sure.
Like if they can trade up a little bit and go get like an Ashton Jeanty
Okay, now
or
we're
like
talking. Okay,
Ted
yeah.
McMillan.
It's your dream. You can
starts
dream
falling.
whatever wet dream you want to dream. You
'Cause,
know?
like,
Why you would say that would anger me?
No, because you hate trading up. You always
I
want
hate trading up.
I know,
Yes,
that's-
I hate
that's-
trading
that's it. Yeah.
because we
but-
haven't traded down in almost 28 years. Give me
But-
one.
Yeah.
But
the Chargers are 1-for-1 in trading up, Jake.
They are.
so far,
They are.
and again, they have a lot of picks this year, and they could get rid of some of them to trade up. Ted McMillan, like that dude, is in a tier by himself in this receiving class, in my opinion. I'm not that enamored by the receiving class, at least on the top end of it. I think
Sure.
second, third, fourth round, you can get some dudes, but in my opinion, the Matthew Goldens, I think it might be a little bit too rich for me at 22.
Trade back candidate kind of thing.
Totally. But then Ashton Jeanty as well. I mean, we talk about two positions, the tight end position, defensive tackle, which is the other one, but also running back are so stacked. And so that being said, though, like Ted McMillan, in my opinion, Ashton Jeanty's like in another tier by himself.
Can you imagine Justin Herbert with Ashton Jeanty standing next to him?
I mean, it would be
that's what I want to dream about.
Yeah. Okay. So, you come over.
I'll come over there. I mean, I think honestly, running backs and tight ends are tough, right? Because I don't think teams will always take them where the projection is. Like, I think people think that Colston Loveland's going to go or maybe earlier than he will. I think Tyler Warren won't go as early. I don't think he's a surefire top 10 pick like people think he will be because and maybe there will be a Brock Bowers effect, right? Because it is a very reactive league. So when you see a team like the Raiders, get a Brock Bowers and have him become the best tight end of all time in his first season, maybe that changes the way GMs, will handle things. But like tight end and running back are two notoriously risky positions to take in round one. And I also think two positions where guys don't always go as early as the consensus might take, send them. I mean, we all had our hopes set for Bijan Robinson, and that there are exceptions, but I think for the most part, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, go back to that rich tight end class, whatever, with a few years ago, Sam Laporta, and you had the
Dalton
Kincaid, Michael Mayer. There's only one tight end that went the first round that year.
Yeah, Dalton
Kincaid.
And it was in the 20s, right?
Yeah.
He didn't go as early as people thought he was going to. So I think
I would not be shocked
great
if
point.
Colston Loveland's there. I wouldn't be shocked at all.
No, and I mean, as a Michigan guy too, David, like, we already saw them draft multiple Michigan Wolverines last year.
Yeah, I mean the connection there is obvious, and I'm with Jake. I definitely want to see Justin Herbert get one of the top tight ends in the draft to pair with for the next hopefully 10 years, because when he had Hunter Henry, like they had a really, really good chemistry together, a really good connection together. So I feel like that's something that they absolutely have to get done. It's just something that it's inexcusable if they don't address the tight end position in the draft with a significant premium pick. But there's been a lot of talk about the quality of this draft class overall, but there's certain positions that seem pretty deep. Last year it was a really good receiver and center draft amongst other positions, but what position would you be upset if the Chargers did not select in this upcoming draft, Dan Wolkenstein?
Oh, it has to be interior defensive line. It has to be.
Yeah.
You hear so many experts talk about how deep this one is, maybe the deepest ever of any class. That's the interior defensive line. I think Daniel Jeremiah has something like 20-something top 100 players being interior defensive line. And we talked about this when the Chargers looking for tight end and we're looking for a center, and both times didn't do it. They got to do it this year. They got to go interior defensive line. And there's so many of them. So if I had to answer that, I think it's easy for me. interior defensive line.
We have more with the Chargers to unleash, guys, including how high is too high to take a running back in the 2025 draft, and also getting into some buy or sells and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel, because when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you just want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. And right now, it's all about tomorrow night, a huge game in the NBA as Luka Doncic and the Lakers are hosting the Mavericks, who just traded for him. And one of the things I saw on FanDuel always has great bets is you can get Luka to score 5+ points in a revenge game in each quarter at plus 200. Right now, FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
I would agree. I mean, the depth of this class is like Ed Harris in the Abyss type deep. You know, there is a ridiculous amount of guys. Even if we're talking about a scenario where you're bringing back Puna Ford and Tyler Tart,
doesn't
you
matter.
Need to start
anyways.
Yes, you need to start building this interior defensive line, and then eventually the edge room as well. You need to start building it out for the future. So, of course, we had taken Justin Igbogbe last year. We didn't get a chance to see him play. I'm hoping that you're going to see more of him this coming season, but definitely in this class, if you're talking about a Kenneth Grant, that's a possibility there. Also, depending on who's on the board in the first round, you go a little bit further than that.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, second, third, and even fourth round guys that you could possibly find in this class. It is just stupid deep for the interior defensive line class. So I would be shocked if Joe Ortiz, who has a track record of taking interior defensive linemen going all the way back to numerous years in Baltimore, if he does not take one in this class, I would be shocked.
Yeah, and we just saw with, I think that, you know, in the Eagles and the Chiefs game, right? Like, get waves. There's never too much. And right. I think also think about it like this, man. Like, when's the last time the Chargers spent a premier pick on an interior defensive lineman? I can tell you because he's not one that's a big fan of Chargers fans out there. And it's Jerry Tillery. And the last time we saw him was him getting jumped by the Chargers on the sideline after a late shot on Justin Herbert. Like, they haven't put the resources in there. It's been the Tito Abonias. It's been the Scott Matlocks. It's been the Cortez Broughtons. And right now in that room, you don't really have anyone you feel good about. The two best guys you had last year were Tyler Tart and Puna Ford. Both of them are heading unrestricted free agency. Tito Abonia is a guy, right? I'm not going to hinge my, I don't think he's part of a monster defensive line that you're trying to build potentially as far as a main part of that. He can be a rotational piece, sure. Scott Matlock was basically completely phased out of the offense or the defense last year in favor of being a fullback. They need to add to that position. And I think to your guys' point, even if you re-sign those guys, more, like David said, but even though it's too soon to write, like last year it was centers, right? Like I loved last year's draft class, but I loved so many centers in that class, and especially after seeing what happened this year, the scar tissue is opening. I'm so upset they didn't get a center last year because there were just so many dudes there, and especially even if you wanted to go with Bradley Bozeman for this season, plenty of guys on day 3 that have already gotten snaps last year and looked pretty good. So that's why I wanted to bring up. It does feel like the Chargers will be missing out in a big way if they don't find a way to get one of these defensive linemen, whether that's in the first round, whether that's the second or third round. But one place the Chargers have really struggled lately to hit on their draft picks, and that's not Joe Ortiz's fault, it's running back. And it's too soon to write off Kamani Vidal. But the Chargers have really struggled to hit on running backs in the draft, and this is another year kind of like defensive tackle for you guys are saying, that they're saying this is a loaded running back class, right? The Chargers have really only attacked it on day 3 since Melvin Gordon. And the best running back they've had since Melvin Gordon was an undrafted free agent. Every other draft pick is kind of fizzled out. Too soon on Kamani, of course. But it's Josh Kelly. It's Larry Roundtree. It's Isaiah Spiller, right? And none of those panned out for the Chargers. So, Dan, is this the year you'd be okay with the Chargers saying, hey, we need to bump up the resources we're putting into this a little bit, and we're not waiting until day 3 to take a running back?
Yes. day one, though, I think it's only, in my opinion, Ashton Jeanty.
Ashton Jeanty or bust, sure.
Yeah,
No Amari and Hampton for you.
Amari and Hampton, the guy's a stud, and I love the style. I just don't know if that's the style that I'm spending a first round draft pick for this team specifically.
I agree,
but it totally matches what Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh type offense. So I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. And so one of the lessons I've learned, especially this past season, was I had to kind of get myself out of the frame of mind of what I would do and what I think versus like what they would do, because like they have a type. There is a specific type. Yeah. Exactly. So there's some dudes, man. Running backs for sure. I mean, like I love Cam Scatterbo. I mean, that guy's one of my favorites.
Scatterbolt.
But like
that's gonna be a future thumbnail of mine. Remember this. It's just gonna be Scatterbolt with him on the
it just sounds right.
That stays here. You guys can't steal it. You guys are charging stealing that.
Trademark.
Intellectual
Trayvon Henderson, I really like as well. Dylan Sampson, I like. Devin Neal's good. But there's so many guys, and that I know people are way iced out on TCU kids, but that do-it-all player from TCU, I forget his name.
Don't bring him up. We're not taking any TCU players this year. Jake, are you okay with taking? Are you okay with taking a running back on days 1 or 2, or like spending a day 2 pick on it instead of a day 3 pick as they've been trying to do recently?
Yeah, I would honestly, and much to Dan's point. Remember what Greg Roman said at the beginning of or before the season started? Imagine Justin Herbert with a running game. And we saw it at times, what it looked like, especially weeks 1 and 2, and it looked good. Unfortunately, we just didn't see it that much with a consistent basis. Even when JK Dobbins was in, sometimes where the running game wasn't working because of a porous offensive line, or even worse, when JK Dobbins was out, you really didn't have a running game that could help Justin Herbert. So if you're talking about adding another one of these guys to a very healthy running back stable, and again, I don't think that you're necessarily looking for a 3-down back. I think that Greg Roman is fully okay with going the old school way that he was doing in Baltimore, where it's running back by committee. Hit him with a different flavor on every single run play that you go. So whether or not it is JK Dobbins or fill in the blank running back that potentially is coming to the Chargers in April, or Kamani Vidal, I think he's going to want a diverse running back group behind Justin Herbert. And you can find it in this class because there's so many flavors and so many running backs that, as Dan said, fit what Greg Roman wants to do. I love Omari and Hampton the more that I watch him. I know a lot of people are high on Quinshon Judkins. Dan mentioned Devin Neal. I'm a big fan of Devin Neal out of Kansas. I can't wait to see the stock of RJ Harvey rise up the boards as we go through the testing and the combine here over the next several weeks. There's just a lot of great players in this running back class. And I think that there is a handful that you can pick, whether we're talking rounds 1, 2, or 3, that can assist this team out in a big, big way. And it's keeping Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz true to their words in terms of what they're doing to help Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and I will say, the guy that Dan was thinking of, Savion Jackson, we're just not going to talk, right? We're just not talking about TCU playmakers because I'm not getting sucked in again. I didn't like Quentin Johnston, and, he did such a good season. I don't want this to be a bang on Quentin Johnson type of thing. He is so much better. But my first note on Quentin Johnson when I watched him was a big receiver that doesn't play like a big receiver, right? And all of those things have kind of come true, unfortunately, but there's a lot of parts of his game to like still. Either way, let's flip it because we like you guys. We're going to get into a segment.
Oh, that's good.
That we very much like to do. One of our most, famous segments that we do every week, or shows we do every week, Buy or Sell. And we're going to do Buy or Sell with the Chargers Unleashed boys. David, go ahead and get us started with the first buy or sell here, and it is a big one. And this is my test to see if you know ball.
Okay. All right, here it is, boys. Buy or sell, Justin Herbert will win a playoff game in 2025. Dan Wolkenstein, buy or sell?
Oh, geez.
If it makes it easier, we can say Justin Herbert will win his next playoff game. I don't know if that changes anything, if the Chargers have a tough schedule, but this is obviously for the narrative of Justin Herbert's not the right guy because of the playoff performance.
Yeah, I'll buy it. I think you have to. I think you look at, the rule, not the exception. And he had a bad game. Yeah. He had a bad game in playoffs. No one's mistaken that. A lot of people had bad games. And a lot of people took blame or should have taken blame in that. Not just him. Yeah. So you look at the full body of work. You look at what that dude has done and how many shoulders he has had to put on his back himself just to get people to play. I mean, the guy goes through so much, and it gives so much of himself to this team. And yeah, I think it's an
And he's
easy
really
buy for
good.
me. Yeah, he's
really
also
freaking
damn good.
Yeah.
Like, people want to sleep on him all you want, go for it. Like, are there lots of questions that have to be answered? Sure. But I think he answers them emphatically.
And I think the hardest part is like he can't fix it by winning week 1 of 2025, right? Like it's not like it's something that's going to sit with us until their next playoff game, Jake. And I think the other part that drives me crazy is people acting like he had the same performance against the Jaguars that he did against the Texans. Like people totally misremembering kind of how that game went to fit the narrative that is in place right now. But Jake, Justin Herbert, buy or sell, he'll win his next playoff game.
I think so. You do what you need to do in this offseason. You give Justin Herbert a better offensive line. You surround him with better weapons. You're going to have a tougher schedule to get there. That's for sure. That's one thing that's different. Chargers had one of the easiest schedules in the league this past season. And dude, to the Houston Texans' credit, they took advantage of a weakness of the Chargers that was essentially there from week 1. And at times, that weakness was masked by Justin Herbert or the run game, or just at times where they were playing as a cohesive unit, which unfortunately was very few last year. And D'Amico Ryans was ready for it. And he attacked the middle of that pocket, did not give Justin Herbert any room to breathe, and got him off the pedestal very, very early in that game. And it's interesting that you bring up the Jacksonville game, because I understand the narrative of it, where you could say, yes, Justin Herbert had a bad game in this one. The defense kept them in that game for as long as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Whereas the Jacksonville game, it was quite the opposite. You allowed a team to come back from
fell apart
27-point deficit in a second half that was just god awful to watch.
Yeah.
So Justin Herbert, I think, especially when you're talking about the season that he had, if you just look at it in the regular season, that was the most efficient Justin Herbert that we have seen since he has been in the league. The turnover numbers were down. He was very, very cautious with the football, disciplined, but when he was able to sling it downfield, he was on. We all remember the beginning of that Cincinnati Bengals game where he was just on fire.
Yes.
The end of the season against the Raiders, he was on fire.
Yeah.
He has the capability of doing that. And I think after, especially being under Jim Harbaugh's leadership, and how about being in an offense for a change that is not rotating offensive coordinators for another season? I think with the continuity there, they're going to be able to put all this together, and Justin Herbert's going to get his first playoff win of his career.
Yeah, and I'm buying it. I'm buying it more so because, you look at that game against Houston, and you want to talk about some of the ill-advised throws that he had. I think there were 2 bad picks that he threw.
Yeah.
But the other ones weren't really his fault at all. And he also got absolutely wrecked with his.
Look what happened to Patrick
injury.
Mahomes in the Super Bowl, boys, right? 3 turnovers and didn't look anything like himself. Sometimes it's not that, sometimes it's that simple. And the same things that undid the Chargers in the first playoff game, that they blew the 27-0 lead because it was all a little bit fraudulent, because they had 7 rushing yards in the second half of that game, is what killed them in this game. And you're hoping to give Justin Herbert a team where he doesn't feel like he has to carry the entire team to a winning performance, and that he can be the reason that you win without having him have to elevate every single player around him to a level that just almost no quarterback is asked to do, right? And I think that's, for me, why it's so simple to me. It's such a small sample size, and people are going to run with the narrative, and he has to take some blame for that game, and that end of story, right? No one is trying to kind of alleviate that.
Absolve
it, exactly. So to me, it's just a dumb conversation for the most part, but one that he himself has to fix the narrative on, and it doesn't happen until he does it and plays well in one of those games. And the really messed up part about it is he could run into a freaking alien in the first round of the wild card round in 2025 and get a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson there. It's not going to be easy, and he's playing at a time with just ridiculous freaks at every good team's quarterback position, and he doesn't have the Eagles roster to try to play with, right, and fit in. He has to elevate everyone. But we'll get to these last ones a couple quick. We have 2 more buy or sells before we get you guys out of here. This is a fun one. Jake, buy or sell, this is the last season that Jesse Minter will be the Chargers defensive coordinator.
You go out there and you have another season the way Jesse Minter had this year. I don't care who the competition was. You're able to turn that defense around like that when we saw the stats of what they looked like in 2023 as opposed to what Jesse Minter just did. Yeah. This may be the last year that you have Jesse Minter, which would lead me to believe that Steve Klingscale would be the heir apparent to Jesse Minter when the day comes that he goes and gets another head coaching job. So I hate to say that I buy this, but yeah, I buy in this one.
Dan?
Might sell this one. I might sell this one because for as insane as
There's going to be some regression, at least numbers-wise. I don't think they're going to be the top defense scoring-wise in the league this year.
And even if there isn't regression, even if
They're
there
number
isn't,
one, even if they're number one defense again.
even if they're number one, he didn't have one head coaching interview.
You're sicker than I thought you were.
No, but it's crazy, but he didn't have one head coaching interview this entire offseason.
I was surprised by the lack of buzz around him.
Do I think he'll be interviewed? For sure.
Yeah.
But will that draw him away from Jim Harbaugh? I don't know. If they win it, maybe. But if they don't win it, there might be some unfinished business. So I'm going to sell it. Wishful thinking, maybe. But how amazing is it, though? Like, and David, I think we were talking earlier about just like what this means for the Chargers, Justin Herbert, or maybe it was Daniel that mentioned this. How at this point, nothing in the regular season matters until you get to the playoffs. Nothing matters. And as a Chargers fan, calling it like that's what you want to see. Like you want expectations. It's not just get in the playoffs and be happy about it. Like right now, it's like you got to win. And to see that with Jim Harbaugh after 1 year, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And let's get you guys on this. Short answer, buy or sell, JK Dobbins will be the starting running back when the Chargers open up the season in Brazil. Because I think everyone's assuming it's going to happen. Everyone thinks he'll be back, and I think he should be back. Are you buying or selling? He will be. And what if you draft it, if you draft Ashton Jeanty, I don't think JK Dobbins is starting week 1 in Brazil, right? Buy or sell it, that he'll be the starter week 1.
I might buy this one purely because I think
most people would.
I think the contract would be in their favor. It's not going to be like what they would have had to pay for Saquon Barkley.
He can't earn it all back in one season where he hits IR. You're not getting 10 plus million. I don't think. Jake, do you agree?
I agree. And talking about the contract, you're not going to see the type of contracts that were handed out to the free agent running backs last year the way that you're going to do this year. So as Dan's point, it is going to tip it in your favor a little bit more. But yes, 100% I'm buying this. I think JK Dobbins has earned that contract to be back, and he'll be RB1 come Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Such a cool story. Snubbed for a comeback player of the year. Sorry about your wrist, Joe Burrow, that you missed 7 games and you won comeback player of the year second time. First of all, you shouldn't be allowed to win it a second time. I'm going to say that. Joe Flacco probably shouldn't have won it. I'm upset about it. Joe, poor thing. You missed 7 games and you were terrible before you got hurt, and then you won comeback player of the year. Sorry that you fell short of offensive player of the year, buddy, and it went to Saquon Barkley. Okay, that doesn't mean you should win comeback player of the year. In my mind, for 7 games, let's put some rules on this. At least you're missing half of the season if you're going to win comeback player of the year. What J.K. Dobbins did, returning from Achilles injury and still looking as explosive as before, is insane. To come back from at least 3 season-ending injuries the way that he has,
that's
totally insane. I mean, it was crazy how quickly he was down at OTAs last year. What are we talking about? The dude ruptured his Achilles, and Kirk Cousins was a total shell of himself, playing a less mobile position, right? And you have J.K. Dobbins doing what he did after all that he's went through. Such a fun story and such a fun show that you guys brought to us today. I think it's fair to say that we're all very excited for what comes next in 2025 and beyond excited about the direction that this team is going under Jim Harbaugh. So, Dan, Jake, thank you so much. Dan, I'll let you say goodbye first.
Please, thank you. I apologize. I sound like Kermit the Frog or some kind of toad. This is insane. Thanks for putting up with my very deep
He did
voice.
ask me before the show if I would care if he did the whole show in a Patrick Mahomes voice, and I was like, well, they did lose the Super Bowl, so I guess this time I'll let it slide. Jake, thank you so much for being, the better sounding, half of the duo today.
Better looking, better sounding.
Okay, I wasn't going to say it. I don't care if it's true. I wasn't going to say it. Thank you, Jake.
Oh, thank you, guys. There's an old expression where it's like lightning doesn't strike twice, but it does strike in 2 different places, and that's just how it's been for Dan and I. We've essentially alternated weeks, not necessarily of sickness, but of things that we've had just going on personally. And we're supposed to get back to recording starting tomorrow. I don't know if I'll remember how to do this because it's been like a 2-week hiatus. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we got to get back to our roster construction. The combine's only a week away. So happy to get back into football talk. But no, this was a great primer. It's always fun coming on and having a crossover and a conversation with you guys. It doesn't get any better than this. this.
And we'll definitely have to do a home. Let us know. You came on with us. We'd love to get back on Chargers Unleashed. It's always a blast over there. So make sure you guys are checking out Chargers Unleashed and subscribing to them on YouTube, finding them wherever you get your podcast from, and also finding both of these guys on Twitter, because I refuse to call it X. You can find Dan Wolkenstein at Dan W Sports and Jake Hefner at Jake T Hefner. What a show. Best crossover and the only crossover so far of the offseason, but I don't think that should put it down. You guys were awesome. It was so much fun. I cannot wait to do it again.
Appreciate you, Dan.
Thank you, guys.
Another special thank you to the guys at Chargers Unleashed. That was so much fun. I can't wait to do it with them again, and it was so fun also doing buy or sell with them. But tomorrow is buy or sell Tuesday, so it's about your guys' buy or sell, which you can hit us up at LockedOnLAC on Twitter and give us your buy or sell there, or call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and give us your 30-second Chargers buy or sell to get to tomorrow. You can also find the show every day on all of our social media, including on Twitter, but also on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page, as well as on my Twitter at Dan Talk Sports. So make sure you guys hit us up so we get to know what you want us to talk about on Buy or Sell Tuesday. But to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. But thank you for checking out today's crossover episode. Make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for Buy or Sell Tuesday. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.